Laura. I'm the dietitian here at the KC Bariatric. Thank you everybody for coming here. We're going to go ahead and get started. Did everybody grab the PowerPoint? Okay. Today we're going to be talking about weight plateau, how to prevent weight plateau, okay? Many of you might be going through this, completely normal, okay? Let's first talk a little bit about success. I have many of you that are going through the weight loss process. I have many of you that are over a year out and very successful. And sometimes when we're through this process, we think, okay, am I being successful? Am I good? Am I not? Am I on target? What will be my goal? You know, what are my expectations with all this? And no, it's not showing very much well here, but success is not necessarily like a straight line. You know, we might expect to be that way, but not necessarily it's just exactly like that. Life is life, right? And sometimes, you know, we get things going at home, at work. Life happens, right? And your body's going to also adapt to all different kind of things, and we don't expect certain things happening at some point in time, and it's not necessarily going to be a straight line, and we need to work with certain things. So I want you to think that things happen, and we're going to work, and we're going to manage the things that happens, and then we're going to continue our journey, okay? Who's agreeing with this? Okay. Okay, good. And here comes the numbers. And even though we don't like to look at numbers, and we would want you to think of your success as how you feel, many of you come by me and say, okay, what's my goal? Am I on track? Am I not? You know, am I being successful or not? You know, our basics is, you know, your excess body weight, you know, have you lost at least half of that person, you know, excess weight loss, okay? So that's where I'm giving you kind of the, you know, the basics. This is where you are you, and what you can do is on you and where you're accountable for, okay? Depends on your age, depends on your physical activity, it depends on how you feel, okay? There's different ways to see this. We can think about that 50%, or we can think about, you know, did I go lower than that 35 BMI, you know? Weight maintenance, okay? Any loss of at least 50% of that excess body weight, but you know, that 20 to 30% of your initial body weight, which is different from that excess body weight that you have, all right? So we can look at it different ways. And we start losing weight, and there he comes the plateau. Who's been there? Okay, good. Weight loss. What happens when we lose weight? There's two things that happen, right? We significantly decrease our calorie intake for some reason. We increase our physical activity in some way. So two things happen, okay? And that's going to make a change to our, your body's going to start reacting to that, right? And at some point, your body's going to start, it's going to try to find a homeostasis, or that balance, and it's going to try to reach what? A metabolic adaptation, okay? So different things are going to happen there. You know, at a cellular level, or, you know, at the cell level, there's that mitochondria that is producing ATP, or energy, and that's going to become more efficient, okay? And a very simple example to that are athletes. Let's say that I have an athlete about the same age, you know, bodybuilding, kind of the same weight, etc., and just doing exactly the same physical activity as somebody with about the same age and weight, but has not been trained, right? And they're doing exactly the same routine. The person who's not been trained, or is not an athlete, might burn more calories than the person that was an athlete, okay? Because that athlete is more efficient in that exercise routine, okay? So that's where adaptation in some way happens at the cellular level, okay? Because you're more trained, you're more adapted to that exercise. Decreased energy expenditure, your metabolic rate. That's what I see from you guys all the time, and that's the first thing that we come up with. Okay, am I in starvation mode? You know, what's happened with my metabolic rate? Is out at the bottom. Well, it happens, and it's normal. My analogy with all this is that if I am 150 pounds and I'm moving my regular walking, you know, my walking from the front to the back of my office and back to the front again every day, about 15 patients to make it an average, right? That walking, my body's gonna burn a certain amount of calories for being 150 pounds and walking that distance as a routine. Well, if I'm losing weight and I'm like 110 pounds, I'm less heavy, right? So when I'm less heavy, and that's a little bit of physics, I'm burning less calories to move the same distance, okay? And that's where, in general, your metabolic rate will decrease because you're lighter. You're not going to need necessarily as many calories as you needed in the past, okay? So that's going to normally happen. So adaptation is normal, okay? And there's going to be some elevations in central hormones that are hunger cues because your body's saying what's going on here. And those are hormonal, changes that is going to happen. You know, the hormones that have to do with catabolism and sense of hunger versus decreasing some of the anabolism or the sense of satiety. That's all going to happen. That's normal, okay? That's your body saying, what's going on here? Let's go back to homeostasis here for a second, see what's going on. So all this is normal.
What is catabolism?
Breaking down of. That's catabolism. Sorry about these little words. So when your body goes to a catabolism stage in your metabolism, it's breaking down molecules. And that's where I need you to be very careful about because we don't want to break down muscle. And one of the first things I say in our first initial contact is preventing protein deficiency because you don't want to break down lean muscle, okay? And that's what is called catabolism, breaking down of muscles. Anabolism will be building up and producing some. And that happens, for example, with athletes, when they're building muscle, they're doing a lot of weight training, etc., and they're breaking down on those muscle fibers, and they need extra calories, extra protein. Whey protein is one of the most efficient because it has a very fast absorption rate to get that recovery phase done, and it's going to start building muscle in that case, okay? Great question. Good job. Hormonal. This is where what we eat can make a big change to our hormone response, okay? And kind of helping with that sense of hunger, sense of satiety, etc. So many, a common metabolic disturbance happens when it comes to insulin, okay? So that's why I wanted to pass out a list of different glycemic type foods, the low, the medium, the high, so you have that information in hand. Let's say that we have a meal, and that meal had white rice, I don't know, maybe some chicken on the side, and maybe you snack on something else, half of a cookie. So after that meal, seems to be high carbohydrate and refined, it's going to make your body increase your insulin production, okay? And that's where that graph, you can't see it. Okay, that's a little guy. Sorry you can see it. Those are some of the symptoms, but I'm going to the next slide really quick, okay? Okay, that insulin is going to peak. You're going to become a little more sensitive because after gastric bariatric surgery in general, that gastric emptying is going to happen quicker, so you're a little more sensitive to these changes. And your body generally is going to increase that insulin at a higher levels than normal, and that's going to cause a rapid drop in your blood sugar levels, and that's what's going to give you the sense of those symptoms in that slide before. You feel weak, you feel shaky, you feel hungry again, and you're going to have the urge to eat again. And then you continue to eat another carbohydrate, because usually what happens, that happens when it's not planned, and you're out and about, and you don't have the time to choose what you're eating. And most of the little things that we find somewhere easy, they're gonna be what? And again, refined sugars, a little higher carbohydrates, and then you end up in that cycle. When you release too much insulin, you have kind of a hypoglycemia event. You respond with hunger, and then you end up having that freaking snacking because volume is not there. So you're gonna end up eating more frequently, and then that can, can contribute to your weight plateau. Okay. I'm kind of cold here.
Laura, I got some more hands if nobody got any.
Anybody?
Just put your hand
Need
up,
the help?
right up here.
So again, this is the graph, and can't see it very well, but here at the bottom is when you're already symptomatic. Now, a side note for diabetes, I've been having a lot of patients in the pre-op diet stage, or soon post-surgery, where your body was used to that 180, 190, and all of a sudden you're at 80, 81, and I mean, the number looks fantastic, but you're symptomatic, right? So sometimes when you have diabetes, those symptoms can come even with normal glucose readings. So you need to just, be on the side, wait until you feel better. And usually within days, a day or two, you're gonna end up feeling better, because again, you're telling your body that's your new normal, that's your new baseline, okay? So all those symptoms are gonna improve with time. Definitely we don't like those symptoms, but that for people who has diabetes, that happens. That's very common to see. So what can we do? Let's go back to that graph here for a second. So this is where my recommendation, tying into the sheet and the low glycemic index happens, because to achieve this, you really need to, this is the core, this is where what you eat is what's important more than anything else. So when you have that meal in your protein center, you have fiber from your vegetables and other low glycemic foods takes place, so you can maximize this and avoid this, okay? So if you look at the low glycemic index, hummus, broccoli, cauliflower, celery, cucumber, they're filled with fiber. So usually the more fibrous vegetables are going to be lower in the caloric density and the lower than in the glycemic index, okay? Chickpeas, rye, more whole grains, fruits that have a skin, oranges, lentil soup, baked beans, grapes, okay? Then you have the very high on the other side, chips, waffles, donuts, pasta, potatoes, cornflakes, Rice Krispies, okay? So those are the ones that you want to avoid to prevent this from happening. And the low, medium are the recommended ones. Yes.
On milk, how come milk is listed up above, and then the skim milk and fat-free is listed as a higher glycemic?
That's a great point. You are something else. Okay, what happened is fat will lower the glycemic index as well as protein, okay? So the glycemic index is a measurement on the sugar itself, and how that reacts, okay, and what effects does it have to our digestive system in general. When you're adding protein and fat to any food, that's going to lower the glycemic index. So that's where the lower, the high fat whole milk is going to be lower in a way compared to skim. That's fantastic. Okay, and that's where my next recommendation is. If you have any medium glycemic index, I think as a general rule, you want to always have a source of protein to lower the glycemic index of that type of particular carbohydrate group. Yes?
How can jams and marmalades have low glycemic, but they're full of sugar?
Excuse me?
How can jams and marmalades be low glycemic if they're full of sugar?
Tom, great point there. What's the number?
49. 49.
So that's in the medium range? Hold on.
No, that's
No, it's
not-
right here.
It's in the
Huh.
red.
I might need to look into that. Maybe more fibrous.
Is it because it's condensed in the cooking process?
Yeah, I can see it's more concentrated, but I can see the fact, I mean, everything else, all the solids involved in it is not as refined and processed. Anything more processed, more refined, and less fiber is going to be higher end. Okay? And I think if any, I should have put the website, there's a glycemic index website that I got this from. And it's an official site. You can search any food that you want and it will bring you the glycemic index. Okay? Great point. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay. There are several reasons for weight plateau. Nutritional reasons, psychological, physical efficiency, okay? Nutritionally speaking, okay? We can do really good for 10 days, and there's one day that we don't do that good. So we gotta try to avoid those days. Sometimes it's even shown that what happened is that one day in a week got forgotten, and then a second day comes along and it got forgotten, and then subconsciously or unconsciously we just forgot. Has been forgotten, and then we end up increasing our calories. And remember that our main source of calories are what? It can be either carbohydrates, it can be proteins, or it can be fat. So we can be pretty good at controlling our carbohydrate intake, for example, but let's say that given week or 2 weeks, I mean, we had something we crave, like avocados, I don't know, example. And then we increase our fat intake, and here we go, 80 grams of fat intake in that week or two. And that's the rationality with all this, is being aware of the things that we've done. Was it really our carbohydrate, or was it really our fats, or was it that we had those 2 protein shakes that we really don't need, okay? So we can easily increase our calorie intake. Sometimes it happens that we get comfortable with foods, and that, comfort level that lets us to increase our calorie intake. Another reason for sensitivity, this is huge to me, and I see this a couple of times. And I got, as an example, dairy products, gluten, and dairy, calcium is important with weight loss. Calcium, I mean, you can research about it. It's highly important. It's been found is very important in the process. However, are you having sensitivity to dairy? That's my next question. I know calcium is important and everything else, and everybody should be supplemented. But what happens when we have sensitivity to dairy? And I sat a couple times at least, and those 2 patients were heavy on dairy products, and they're having some signs of bloatiness and some other physical signs. And I said, what about we hold on dairy for about 6 weeks and see how you feel? Down 10 pounds, no time. And that happens because you're having some sort of an allergic reaction. And what happens is that your immune system is attacking your small intestine in a way that creates what we call a leaky gut. Leaky gut, nothing else that some of those partially pre-digested molecules and food it can be leaking to your bloodstream. Bacteria can be infiltrated, and then your immune system starts attacking that invader, so to speak. And that inflammation that happens, it goes on and on and on every day, and those inflammatory processes prevents you from losing weight, okay? So that needs to be assessed. Okay, the same happen with gluten in a way. Not necessarily you have to be celiac or have the seal that you're celiac, but there's some degree of intolerances there, and needs to be assessed before we can definitely say this has been affecting your weight loss, okay, or hitting a plateau for these reasons. Saying a couple of times at least, okay? Deviating from your eating plan, snacking and grazing, getting comfortable, with the frequency. Poor food choices, I know those, right? That ice cream in the evening, okay? Try to keep, go back in track. Inability to maintain that healthy eating habits when the weight loss plateau happens. So that's kind of a little bit psychological to me, but we're doing great. And then we hit a plateau for a week, and then we kind of sabotage, okay? And then we start snacking and grazing and, going all the way against from the eating pattern that we should have. So we need to remain strong. And lack of self-monitoring, I think that's the time where you want to log and you want to really see how many calories you're getting into, what's happening during that 1 week. So even usually I recommend not to be done like on a typical day, but every day, so you can see what your pattern is during your work hours versus your weekends, at home versus at work, etc. So you can understand your triggers and you can see a pattern. Any questions? You guys been quiet.
Laura,
Yes.
what do you do? I'm on the second month post-op,
Okay.
and I was trying to eat meat and it started making me sick. So now I've gone back to cottage cheese.
What is making you sick?
Meat.
Meat?
Meat mix.
Okay, so what do you feel? How do you feel that you think is making you sick?
I just feel nauseated.
Nauseated.
Or throw up, actually.
Okay.
And so,
How much are you eating?
2 bites is all it takes.
2 bites?
Yeah, it's not much.
And what meat were those?
I tried ground beef.
Ground beef?
Yeah, and I tried, I can do the deli ham.
Deli ham?
If I don't eat much of it. I'm talking about one ounce slice.
Yes.
And I don't eat much meat. And the egg, now I can only eat a couple of bites of it.
Okay.
So I've gone back to cottage cheese,
And what procedure did you have?
roux wine,
Rowan white. Okay.
basically cottage cheese, protein drinks, which are all.
That falls into this next slide, so we're good.
But
You have the question right on target.
I'm also not, I haven't lost in the last probably week.
Okay. How much have you lost so far?
Since January 9th, 33 pounds.
Okay.
Since my highest weight, 46.
Okay. So I personally, when situations like this happens, I need to set more in detail and look a little further with your physical activity, protein source, protein drinks, to try to have a little more through assessment on your calories and see how can I help you. To answer some of your questions and to answer some of the things that she's going through right now, falls exactly into this. This is exactly the stage where we know that we have 2 types of foods in general. We have the foods that we feel safe and comfortable, the cottage cheese, the yogurt, refried beans. We're like, okay, I'm safe here. I know this. And then we have the not so comfortable, which are the higher protein, higher fiber foods. And that's exactly what I wrote here. They're reported as not well tolerated versus they go down easy. Oh yeah, feels better now. My recommendation to you will be continue to add variety of proteins. Beef didn't work, ground beef didn't work. Let's try fish, maybe shrimp, maybe a tilapia or salmon. And salmon, if you overcook it, can get really dry. So I need you to try other variety of proteins. When you make the comment in 2 bites or 3 bites, that's 1 ounce. And that's exactly how much I expect you to eat for having a bypass. So if you're having a bypass, and what I recommend to you, you still need to be on your protein supplement, okay? A liquid protein that provides enough protein while you continue to progress your volume in solids. Yes.
She needs to chew probably better.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
found
see,
that.
and a suggestion from him is,
Chew your food better, make it liquid.
I do. You chewed up about 42 times.
take your time, smaller bites. Maybe you were full half of that bite. It gets to that point. And to prevent you from feeling nauseated, you just need to learn to stop, okay? But I want you to avoid from going back to the liquid, okay? The liquidy foods. I want you to continue to introduce more variety of your solids, even though it's 2 bites and you're done. Embrace it, be happy, wait your 30 minutes, get the hydration, and get a protein supplement, okay? And you continue to add variety, and that with time is going to improve the volume, okay?
But what do you do when you're 2 years out? You've lost weight, you're regaining proteins. I can't, when you say the word tilapia, I want to throw up.
Yeah, your palate will change. Yep.
Fish, I want to throw up.
Okay.
I can't even handle, I don't hardly ever eat at all. I can't handle it. So,
What about legumes, beans, nuts, vegetable protein?
I eat that.
Okay. Yeah, many of you,
I'm on the road to regaining, so that's, I thought we were.
Okay. Okay. And that might be probably because of your lack of protein. Most of your other foods then are going to be higher in carbohydrates or fat. We can look into that in more detail on a one-to-one, most definitely. Okay? So we got this, right? We need to start. What happens is that when you're comfortable with your more softer foods that's going to enter your pouch quicker, you're going to end up feeling hungry, and then you're going to end up eating more and more frequently and more. The sense of hunger is going to be there because gastric empty happen quicker. And then we end up kind of tricking the pouch in such a way, okay? Of course, avoid the liquid calories. I call it the sliders or liquid foods. Your calorie beverages, your juices, energy drinks, sodas that we should not be drinking sodas. Protein drinks, sometimes it's just that. Sometimes, and that this happens a lot with sleep patients, that they're doing fantastic, they're having 3 ounces of protein, they're actually have incorporated some veggies, some starchy foods, and they still continue on 2 protein drinks a day. Well, those are 2 extra meals. You're having way too many more, probably too much protein, okay? And protein is going to become important a little higher amounts in the very first 3 weeks or so, because you're going to go into that ketogenic stage. After those 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to go back to what we discussed on the adaptation. You're keto adapting in a way, and you're just going to start using ketones more efficiently for fuel, right? And your protein needs are not going to be that high anymore, just like any other adaptation. So your protein needs are going to go down to maybe 0.8 to 1.2, 1.5 if you're really doing a lot of physical activity an hour, 5 days a week or so. So more up to the upper limit for anybody who's been very active, and down to the lower limit, 0.8 for somebody who's really sedentary, okay? That's 0.8 grams per kilo of ideal body weight. That's just a rough estimate there for you guys. So I really need you to, if this happens, you can call me, you can make an appointment with me. As you can see, it requires a little more like an in-depth assessment to try to see how can I help you and what my recommendations will be for you. But important for you today, knowing to go back to basics. Log, assess what you're doing calorically, assess your physical activity, which we'll discuss here in a second. 3 meals, protein center, yes.
Back to the more liquid calories.
Uh-huh.
We're not supposed to have peanut butter?
I would use peanut butter as a booster for a meal. For example, let's say that, back to her comments, I barely can eat an ounce of protein, maybe 2 ounces of protein, that's about 14 grams. And you're down to those last 5 grams to get to 20 grams in that meal. I would use peanut butter in a healthy way as a way to get to that 20, that extra 5 grams that I need. What happens is when we try to get all the protein we need with peanut butter, and what happens is that a serving might provide about 5 grams or so roughly, but it's going to provide you with 15 grams of fat. They're good fats, don't take me wrong, but again, back to grams, I do that 3 times a day and I'm already eating 45 grams of fat. Okay, where in our calorie deficit, maybe about 30 grams is about average here, what we're losing weight. So you're already going over the amount of fat, and that's not counting any other food that you've eaten, and that's taking in the fact that they're gonna empty the peanut butter is not really gonna give you the satiety in terms of the gastric emptying. It's gonna empty your pouch quicker, and you might feel that you can eat again and again and again, and you end up, the grazing stage.
So what I do is like for breakfast, I'll have a toast with peanut butter on it for breakfast.
Okay.
And maybe that's the only time during the day.
Okay. So that breakfast, in my understanding, is about 5 to 6 grams of it, a gram or so in the bread. But we need to increase that protein in that breakfast. Okay. You want a little higher carbohydrates because you got about 15 grams in carbohydrate, but you remain your protein like in the lower end at 5 grams or so. So maybe having an egg and then that toast. But you couldn't do that, so you would be able to do half of a toast or less than that. That's where you laugh. Or another thing you can do, you can have a slice of cheese or ham and then have that toast. Okay, and that will improve some of your protein intake. And that's to prevent back to catabolism, that's just to prevent any loss of muscle mass. And that's what we need to feed our body first, is just enough protein to make sure you're giving the protein what your body needs. Okay, and that's where many of you say, am I in starvation mode? And I'm like, that word. Yes. But, to me, if you're lacking protein, then you're running into that, okay? Because you might get calories, but from the wrong places, from too much fat or too much carbohydrate, not necessarily enough protein, okay? Any other question? So back to basics, 3 meals, protein centered, eat slowly, stop when satisfied, yeah.
Yes.
I think you brought it up at about 2 months ago, right? You liked it, and you could tolerate it, you too?
What is it for?
Yes. Would you mention that really quick?
P28 bread.
P28.
I buy it off the internet. It's better toasted than regular. They also have bagels and wraps. It's almost $7. It's over $6 a loaf online, but I keep it in the freezer and only take out 2 pieces at a time and keep it in the bag. At the last meeting after that, somebody said they found it in the freezer section at the healthy Hy-Vees. So you don't have to get it online.
So what's the deal?
So does it have 28?
It's made with whey protein.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is it good?
Two.
2 slices, 28 grams in protein.
You can't eat 2 slices.
But you cannot eat 2 slices. We love this, right? Is it fulfilling?
Yes.
Yes.
It's very fulfilling. Okay.
And the spreads are great too.
It's kind of my pancakes, right?
Yes.
Just kidding.
Waffle. They sell P28 spread.
In Hy-Vee, right?
Right.
I heard Hy-Vee's bringing those now.
Somebody
Okay.
said in the freezer section at the healthy area.
Freezer section. Probably in the back freezer where they have, sometimes they separate some of the gluten, the gluten-free pies and pie crust. Okay. Psychological aspect behind weight loss plateau. these are things that probably you want to talk to doctors of apathy, but I wanted to bring it up because it could relate to the nutritional component with eating behavior. Non-normative eating patterns, binge eating disorder, feelings the loss of control, and that persists, that loss of control is still there, and you cannot have the volume, so sometimes it can convert to a snacking or a grazing problem, okay? Night eating syndrome, and I don't know if you've ever had this, but you eat later in the evening, then in the morning time you're feeling full still, and you decide, I'm not gonna have breakfast. Very light lunch or no lunch, I've seen it. And then it comes dinner time, and then we eat a larger dinner, and then we continue to eat, and we continue to eat through the night. Then we go to sleep. Sometimes we may or may not wake up in the middle of the night, eat again. If not, then we sleep through the night, and the next morning is the same. It's an anorexia event. I'm feeling full. I don't need to eat. Maybe sense of guilt. I'm feeling guilty. I'm gonna start over again. Let me just hold again, and then the same cycle happens and happens again. So that's why it's very important to get those structured meals, get protein center, and hopefully, in the evening time, hormonally you're gonna be more stable, and you're gonna prevent from this syndrome to continue on. And grazing syndrome, we all know that. That's snacking and grazing, trying to avoid that. And that's where, if you see yourself eating when you log, kind of every 2 hours, we want to prevent that from happening. You should go good, 4 hours or so. Should be okay, all right? Some signs of depression, and that can happen. I need you to talk to your psychologist, talk to doctors of apathy, because if you have some medications and the gastric emptying change, the absorption of that medication probably changed, you need to make probably changes in your doses or the frequency of your medication, and you should not be concerned about speaking to those things, to your primary, the person who prescribed your medication, or doctors of apathy, okay? Some difficulty in having that impulsive control, lack of psychological follow-up, the same, all those thoughts and fears, especially when you hit that weight plateau, talk through it, come and seek doctors of apathy for that. And lack of support group attendance, usually, I think he commented last month that people that come to support group and get all this information, they're most likely, an increased success. Exercise efficiency, this is super important. This is where, I read that analogy on the athlete before, okay? Let's say that you're walking a mile, you're starting all this process and you walk 1 mile and that felt phenomenal. By the way, you were exacerbated at 1 mile walk. And we've all been through that in a way, right? And then you start losing weight, you lost 20 pounds, it's been a month, 2 months, and now you're walking that mile and you feel good. And I would like you to even log, because I've done it. When I do a physical activity, how did I feel when I did that? I did this routine for 30 minutes, and I feel like super exacerbated. I feel like I ran a marathon on a 10, and I do that physical activity for 3 or 4 weeks, and when I log on a scale to 1 to 10, I'm probably in a 7 or a 6. I didn't feel necessarily how I felt in the beginning, and that's where, you're adapting to your physical activity, your body gets in better shape, you're more efficient with what you're doing, even your cardiopulmonary function is improved, so you're burning less calories for what you're doing because your body became more efficient, okay? And I know at times, adaptation is normal, and there's times where you can have adaptation for about a week and your body continues to work on it and you see an effect again, but there's times where it can be for 2 to 3 weeks, and I need you to think, I need to change some of my physical activity. If your diet is perfect and you log for a week and all of those numbers looks great, then think of physical activity, change your routine, engage more in high-intensity interval training. It's been found that it's much more effective. For example, it's been shown that it's more effective to do a 30-minute interval training, which is increasing the speed going back to baseline, do another 3 minutes at baseline, increase your intensity for 3 minutes, back to baseline on a cycle of 5, roughly. It's more efficient to do it that way than having a 3-mile walk for the same time, okay? Surprisingly, your minimum on physical activity should be about 150 minutes. That's 30 minutes 5 times a week. And if you want to reach substantial weight loss, which is, going far beyond that 50% loss of the excess body weight, right? They recommended 60 minutes 5 times a week with some strength training added to the routine. Okay, so we're at about 300 minutes per week of physical activity if you want to look at getting into a substantial weight loss, okay? Yes?
How soon after surgery do you expect to be able to be exercising that much?
Walking right away. Chris, what's the weight limit at the lifting weight? Is it 15 pounds?
15 pounds.
15 pounds for 3 or 4 weeks.
But I mean, I know I can walk now, but.
Exactly. I think as long as you feel comfortable, if you're taking the stairs and that's not bothering you, that's good. If you do a treadmill, for example, at up to 2 levels up, that should be fine. Actually, any walking at any area, common area, will be like a level 2 on the treadmill. That should be fine too. Yes.
What types of activities do you recommend for strength training, especially in the beginning, that are better for joints?
For joints, gosh, I'm not a physical therapist. However,
Water aerobics.
Is that considered strength training?
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I
Oh,
thought it was more aerobic.
yes.
No.
Oh, yes. You will see. Actually, some athletes, and this is just a side note here, if you want to train for a triathlon or a marathon or something like that, usually they need to be trained they train for about 6 months, 4 to 6 months, but let's say there's an event and you're just 2 months out for the event, they go in water to try to improve their performance.
Because of the resistance.
Because of the resistance, exactly. Yeah. And another thing, if you're having a lot of trouble and water is not available because not everybody has the means for a pool, then probably focus on your upper body. Because once you start losing 30, 40 pounds, your lower extremities are going to feel better and you can engage in a little more aerobic exercise. Which, by the way, you want to do both. Because at the moment you hit a plateau, that's the time where you want to increase the cardio. And since you have not trained your body to do the cardio, you'll be more efficient of hitting that plateau and get it over that. Okay?
Resistance bands are a great way to be able to get a very cheap resistance band for $5 and use those at home. You can be sitting down and do them. You can put it on your feet and do pull-ups with them. So, and in fact, next month, the speaker a month from now is Greg Justice, who is an exercise physiologist, and he's going to talk about
Resistance bands. And start with 5 pounds. 5, 3 pounds, whatever you can do, very light. The good thing about this, that when you start doing strength training, you will see that you will do the 5 pounds for, I'm going to say 3 to 4 weeks. And in 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to feel like, okay, these 5 pounds are not as heavy as I thought it was like 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, And then you're going to increase to 7, and then it keeps going. And of course, at some point, you want to just keep it at pace and maintain. But yes.
I just wanted to say that I go to the Bonner Springs YMCA.
Bonner Springs YMCA.
3 days a week at 2 o'clock. They have a water arthritis class, which is water aerobics. And then the alternate 2 days, Tuesday and Thursday, they have water yoga.
Water yoga.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So I do both. I alternate between those.
Perfect.
Then I stay for an extra half hour afterwards, so I'm in the pool for 90 minutes. every time.
Fantastic.
But
Fantastic.
it makes it very easy because I have bad knees. But you can do anything in the water, whereas I can't do it on land. But I can
Exactly.
do all of the exercises in
In water.
And it's fantastic.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank
And the
you.
water's warm.
It's nice there. I
Sign me up for that
I
one.
drove a bunch of pounds there after my surgery, and that's very cool. It's a good place
Really?
to go. It's a good place to go.
Fantastic.
I was just going to say, I started
got this, I never. when I
Here,
was-
let me give you this so people can hear
Oh,
you.
no, that's all right,
In
I
here.
can talk louder. When I first started, I've never had this jelly arm thing, the wave thing, it really drives me crazy. So I'm at Club 7 over in Kearney, and the little gal, if you join Club 7, I did a poll for them, but all of the classes are included, so it's like $27 a month, and you can take any of the classes any day. But anyway, she had me, so I have a weight sitting by my chair, and when I'm watching TV, I will sit and do this number, while and that pulls this right here. I don't know whether anybody else is having that problem, that I can't hardly stand it. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, it's like waves on.
Thank you for sharing. Make it fun. There's nothing better than doing something that is fun. Weight regain. Any questions with weight plateau? Anybody wanting to bring anything in particular? It happens. Adaptation. Give a week. And this is it's important to say that even it's going to happen when you are doing everything perfect. It's just the body is trying to get back to that homeostasis, saying, okay, you're bringing me down to this, what now? Back to norm. What are you taking me here? A lot of metabolic responses, a lot of hormonal changes happening. Stay with what you're doing. If you know you're doing things right, make it, call me, make an appointment with me. We can dig into the details, see if I can see anything that you probably have not seen and help you out with that. Within a week or so, you should, go through that plateau. If it happens for longer, log, change routines, okay? Assess what you're doing. Anything psychological, anything physical activity, nutritional. Make some changes, and then you're gonna start losing again, okay? And I do understand, and I want you to be realistic, that in the very beginning, that weight loss is going to come faster. And once you're kind of a little farther into the surgery, then the weight loss is going to be more steady. A slower rate, but steady. But that's because your metabolic rate has decreased because you're much lighter. And it's going to happen, and it's going to happen at a lower pace, okay? It's not that you just stop there. You just need to assess what's happening and go from there, okay? Weight regain, I have many emails about weight regain. We have a lot of fear. And we talked about fear for a little bit last month with Dr. Sababati. So research have found, 15% or so. Some research say up to 25%. That would be like a significant weight regain. So if you have a 5% weight regain, that's normal. If you look at the weight loss chart with bariatric patients, it kind of brings a U shape in a way. So you're going to always have the lowest point, your lowest weight. Let's say you're 5'3" and you went down to 130, and you feel that was like ideal, that was your lowest point, and then at some point within 2 or 3 months you reach 140 pounds or 135 pounds. That's within normal. That, research have shown that happens, over 50% of the cases, 56%. So I put a little math in here so you can calculate that person weight of what that was lost and regained, okay? So in that case, that person started at 315 pounds, her lowest weight was 140, and she gained 10 pounds. I made 150. So she really gained about 5% of her body, the percent of the weight that she lost, okay? And that's the chart that I brought in the side that you can't really see here, but it's in your handout, okay? That U-shaped graph, okay? So it's normal, it happens now. If this person would be maybe up to 180, 190, then there were some nutritional factors that affected her weight gain. And then I would like her to address those and, you know, have her come back to me, assess and follow up, okay? Any questions? Good, well, thank you for coming. Let's break into groups, correct?
Got a big